So welcome everyone to another Wealthy Teachers interview. I am Dr. Derek Padilla with your co-host.
This is me, Lindsay. Yay. We're getting so funny. It's like weird to go from a solo podcast to like co-hosted. So we're working on it. But today I'm so excited because we have Jereshia Hawk. She is going to be our first interview of an entrepreneur who has a course that is very successful, is a huge part of her income in this business that she's built online. And she is a fantastic teacher. And I know I tell her that all the time. And so everybody, I would love you to welcome Jereshia Hawk.
Hey, y'all. I'm so pumped. Like super excited. So thanks for having me on.
Like when was the last time you got to talk about how cool your course is, just like, and how great of a teacher you are, right?
Like I'm excited to have the conversation from that vantage point, especially in this entrepreneurial space where everybody's like, go build a course, but like they forget that you have to also teach.
Yeah,
and like
right? Weird.
Coach.
They're like, make all the monies and then...
But what about like the other part, like students and then, So I'm excited for the combo.
Yay. Cool. So why don't you give us a little bit of an intro on how you make money by teaching online?
Hey, y'all. So I have a course called Services That Sell, and it teaches coaches, consultants, freelancers how to package a high ticket offer and sell it consistently using what we call the lean launch method, which is just live stream video to sales calls. And boom, real simple, least path of resistance to converting clients, making money, and being able to support clients with getting consistent results. But the course has been in existence for almost like 2 years now, which is like wild to think about, but it's gone through 3 name changes, 5 different iterations. So we can talk about all of the evolution.
Oh my gosh, I love it. This is perfect because this is like what I teach from. I'm like, whatever you're launching right now is not the final end thing.
Exactly.
So cool. So how many students have you served so far?
About 350 or so.
Nice. Awesome. So what did it, if you can give us like quickly, like maybe some of the major milestones of changes and what possibly prompted that? Like, I know a lot of what we talk about too with my students is messaging is like one of the things that, and especially in Build a Better Beta, we're like, you want to get your product out there, but know that you're fine tuning your messaging. So I know you recently changed, your name to Services That Sell, and like exactly that explanation of who you serve and how you serve them has gotten more tighter as you've been selling on a webinar, evergreen for the last year and a half as well. Like, I know how important that fine-tuned message is, but if you can kind of go back to the beginning and talk a little bit about maybe some of the major things you changed and what you found out about who your audience was and how you could best help them.
Yeah, totally. Well, the first version was trash. It was like I was going through lead pages maybe a week or so ago, and like I saw the old landing pages for
I love it.
Oh my gosh, it was so, I'm like, people bought
maybe
this
we'll
thing?
Screenshot that below if Jereshia is nice.
I'd be willing to share. So really all this started because I used to do one-on-one coaching. And after I was working with clients and starting to see that there was a process that I was taking clients through to get results, I was like, okay, how can I leverage this one-on-one service that I've been doing to package this into more of a curriculum, a proven process where, the teaching can now be documented, but I have more capacity to be able to coach multiple clients. So that's where it started with one-on-one clients. And then, you have somewhat of a confidence when you're doing one-on-one, then I don't know why there was this drop in messaging, I think for me, or this difficulty with messaging. Like, how do I now communicate this to the masses versus me having to just customize it one-on-one? So I would say that was a pivotal point, just going from one-on-one to group format. But the first program was called Launch Your Hustle. And it was really helping anyone who had a 9-to-5 build a business on the side. While that sounds jazzy, it was not the smartest from like a messaging positioning standpoint, because it's anybody who has a 9-to-5, which is like, hello, 90% of America, who wants to have a side hustle, which is like, hello, 70% of America. I'm trying to like help everybody. Yeah. And I converted my first 6 clients into that and realized that I was trying to solve way too many problems in that, and for way too many different people. And kind of even going through my own struggles with that, that's really what also allowed me to fine tune the framework, because that's when the POP method got created, like pick one problem, pick one person, package one process, was through my own challenges. So probably after maybe 3 or 4 months of selling it as Launch Your Hustle, I turned it into FFI, which is fixed income. I was
That's
like,
a good one.
Right? I was like, how do I lean into more of who the person is? And it was like, this disgruntled, angry corporate America professional who was just like tired of living paycheck to paycheck. But still, it wasn't really clear on the problem. I was getting closer on like the frustration of the person, but not necessarily the problem, like the really clear path. Like, what's the recipe that we're going to be able to implement to get the final meal, like the finished product? Yep. So we launched FFI. FFI did really well, though, I think, just because of the name, probably. And
yeah, it's a good one. It's like, oh, yeah, you're kind of highlighting a real thing that maybe people haven't. It's an angle on the idea of a salary in a different way, for sure.
Yeah. So there probably maybe 30 students went through that. And when I started thinking about, okay, do I ever want to run Facebook ads to this, or do I ever want to trademark this?
That one. Yeah.
I was like, so I have to change the name. And that's really where I started to drill down even further. So the content now at this point has went through 2 different iterations from the actual curriculum perspective and 2 different names. And then I started to drill down, okay, what's a name that really represents the end result that people will get by the time they finish? And it's like, they'll have a service that sells, they'll have a well-packaged offer, and they'll know how to actually sell it consistently. So that's where the name came from. And then since Services That Sell has been in existence, it's probably about another 250, 275 students who've gone through that iteration. And that course itself has gone through 3 different curriculum enhancements. So that's at least how the name changed, and then also some insight on how the curriculum changed. But once we got into Services That Sell, I kind of look at it like who are my alpha students, who are my beta students, and then what's the delta?
Yep.
And I think Services That Sell was when we got to the point where this is like, we know that we can get results. We know that people actually want it. How do we now do it consistently and make it a little bit more seamless in regards to how we attract clients and how we support them? So within Services That Sell, the main thing we started paying attention to is, I documented every single question that a student ever asked, at what point they asked it. And then that started to really identify some gaps in how we were teaching and in the curriculum, which was, preventing students from being able to actually apply what they were learning and get the results that were promised in the program. And that's where the iterations within Services That Sell came and changed.
Yes. I love it.
Perfect. That's exactly what we teach.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, well, great. Guys, going to build better data.
Yeah. Yay. What kind of team did you have for support around doing all of that work? Because it is a lot of work to collect and then implement changes to your course.
So for a very long time, it was just me, myself, and I.
The Hawk Hustle.
Hawk Hustle was in full effect.
Straight up.
Today, after, now that we're evergreen and students are enrolling all the time, we just brought on a Services That Sell coach. Yep. So this is just one person that's in the program that really helps students implement what it is that we're teaching. And then one support person that's responsible for all customer support, failed payments, and payment recovery.
Yeah, we know
just 2 contractors.
Yeah, it's very cool. So what are you thinking is working really well in your course? Like, I always love catching up with you and seeing how you're experimenting with motivating students and getting them, to take action. And for people listening to this episode too, like Jereshia is very active on like Instagram and has does Instagram lives regularly and Facebook lives regularly. And she just carries people through, like tells them how it is, and like is very motivating. So I love hearing about what's working for teachers who are doing their thing, making it happen. What's working in your course right now? What are your students loving that you're doing?
I'd say the thing that they're loving is that we are under promising and over delivering very consistently. And I think when you nail down your offer and get clear, this is the one result we're going to promise students, it makes it easy to over deliver, because anything else you give or any other transformation that takes place is beyond the promise of what was on the sales page.
They're blown away.
So,
Yep.
Yeah. They're like, what? Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's more. I'm like, yes, wait till you get to module 2. There's even more that's going to get released. But I think that goes back into what you were saying initially, was like with the messaging and getting clear that this is the specific promise that we are delivering. So it makes it easy to over deliver on everything else. And I'd say second is the community that we have. I mean, most courses come with a Facebook group, and what I'm hearing from my students is that so many other programs that they've been in, the Facebook group is completely dead, or very low engagement. Is really just,
or the teacher's never there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, which just imagine if that were college and it's like, oh, here's this classroom and the teacher never shows up. Like that would be terrible. So I think our community is really thriving too, but I think we've built in a lot of automation that makes it easier for myself and for our services that sell coach to be present, to not have to worry about administrative things. So I don't know if my students realize that that's something that we've built in, but I would say that's probably something that we do really well. That results in them having a very great experience. Is, similar to like when people are launching their course and let's say they're using emails, they build out a full email campaign over a 2 or 3 week time frame to be able to guide somebody through the sale. But what I think is interesting is once the program starts, there's no email campaign to support that client through the program. And we've identified, because we were doing a lot of auditing on the course throughout the years, we know where people have emotional hangups, where they get fear, and we know exactly like 15 days in is where people have the first freak out moment. And then it's like literally on the 15th day. And then, normally about 3 to 4 weeks in, they have another major like valley moment where they have to help get overcome. So, part of the course content, there's an email sequence on the back end and also some manual touch points that we give. We text our students when they enroll. We call our students on that 15th day. In addition to that email sequence on the back end that anticipates where they're going to have hangups, and we create content that lets them know beforehand that, hey, in about a week, you're going to have this experience.
Yeah, this is normal. Yeah, you're normalizing.
Normalizing and also giving them the tools on how to handle those moments when it does come up. So I think that's something that works really, really well for us and also helps our students move through the program. And nobody's ever said like, oh my God, those emails were the thing, but the psychology of what we're seeing and where they're getting hung up and when they read it, we're definitely noticing, more momentum on more consistent momentum. So I'd say those 2 things we're doing really well.
See, guys, she's an amazing teacher because it's so funny because I just finished my book and a huge piece of, I know.
Sorry. Go, Lindsay.
I know. But it's funny because a lot of people, that's what I think is missing in the how to create a course space is this idea of the emotional landscape of the students. There's so much focus on like, oh, well, they're not getting through the content or they aren't completing the course. And I'm like, well, why? It's not. And everyone thinks it's the teacher's fault. In many cases, they're blaming themselves. And it is on some level, but the thing that they're not looking at is like, oh, the reason why the student isn't finishing is because we're asking them to do a really fucking hard thing. Like literally, what is the hardest thing you can ask somebody? Oh, I don't know, go sell a course, right? So I know too in my course, exactly the moment that they're going to doubt themselves, whatever. And it's funny because I can almost say without fail, we say this to our students too. It's like module 3 is usually the big meat of your course. It's like module 2 or 3, right? And that's where you're probably teaching the thing that they signed up for. And they're going to put in every sort of self-sabotaging thing for them to not do the thing, even though they bought it and they really want the outcome. And so it's this funny mix of if you're not guessing where your students are going to stumble or get scared or doubt themselves, you're not helping them motivate and move through. What I'm seeing a lot in this space is people like basically wiping their hands and saying, well, it's their responsibility. I got the sale. I made the content. The content's there. The content's waiting for them. Why aren't they finishing? Right. And I was just like, what? You're like not missing that layer. What is that called? Extra layer. There we go. You're missing the extra layer in consideration.
Yeah, like you're dealing with a human being. Like we forget
human being
that, like
that's trying to learn something. Exactly.
Yeah.
Not just learn, but like take action.
Take action. You're right. It's not even just learning. It's actually the motivation to do something against everything that they like in their body that's trying to protect them. I mean, there's so many different layers to this in business. When you're helping someone build a business, like we know how hard it is. And there's just, you can build in safety nets. I call them safety nets to catch people at certain points in your course when you know it's about to get hard. And the more you're honest about it with them, and the more you're able to step in and exactly build the manual touch points, even for 350 students, not everyone's at the same place at the same time. So it's just a quick and easy, automatic maybe thing that happens in your project management system, or someone on your team is responsible. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we have them set their launch date when they're launching their course. And then once that date approaches, they unlock, based on the calendar date, a call with Lindsay.
Yeah. So the bonus we have is like a hot seat call for a launch, but they have to earn it. Right. And so there's lots of different ways to like add those safety nets. So I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that's going to be really valuable for people. We don't have an email sequence to catch people.
No, that's one thing we need to look into, but it's a little different. Like, I don't know if we could say it's day 15 and day 21 or, something like that. 'Cause everyone comes in doing different things at different paces. Yeah. So that's why it's like, it's attached to the launch date, but
we could, though, on the tail end of that, like if they decide not to stick with their launch, which people do, and that's okay. What do we do to bring them back in? So very cool. Yep.
So I'm curious, Jereshia, in your business, where does the course fit in? Like, is your business essentially 100% your course, or do you still have services outside of the course?
I've been going all in on the course because I wanted it to be my number one focus and attention. So probably for the last, like year and a half since I started evergreening it, that's been the only thing that we've sold. So I'd say about 96% of my income has been strictly from services that sell, which has actually it was terrifying at first to say, I'm going to just double down on this, but it was the smartest thing that I could have done, because it allows you to get into the weeds of every aspect of being able to not only attract clients into it, sell it, but also to deliver on the back end, which I think it's also opened my eyes to where there are opportunities for us to put, additional automation or enhancements in. Just how do we make this, how do we really make this program world-class? Where everybody that comes in, I was telling Lindsay about this before, about 75% of our students who enroll earn a full return on their investment within 90 days of being in the program.
Nice.
And I'm like, I want to maintain that, and I want that to be the norm. So we've doubled down. And then just this, maybe a month ago, is when we introduced a new offer called Leverage, but it's still very much aligned with so services that sell teaches them how to sell a 4-figure one-on-one service. And then Leverage teaches them, now that you've sold your services one-on-one and you've gotten results consistently, how do we now leverage this into a high-ticket group program, into your leveraged offer? So even though, we just introduced that, like I said, a month ago, but it's a very natural, evolution with what somebody would experience from services that sell.
I love it. I love this conversation because I think it's so important. I think it took me a little while, like I came into my own understanding of this as well, because I wanted to fight it a little bit too. But this idea that a course is an asset in your business that can pay back over and over again. And so if you're not giving it its due time, effort, energy, money, focus, like all the things, you're not going to ever make it something world-class. And then you release the next thing. And the other thing is sitting there half done when you could have gone all in. And I think that that's a common mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make, where they're like, oh, that launch only sold like 5 people. I better get something else, because they're expecting something huge. And it's like, no, but like those 5 people believed in you and like wanted your help, and you helped them. What can we do to bring in more people and keep focusing? And I think when we look at it as something that can give back to us, right? Because now you can just keep making it better and better. You don't have to start over. So many times people are just relaunching new things. And it's almost like, I don't know, they're like trying to hit some magic lottery thing of like, oh, like this will be the thing that makes me $1 bajillion. And it's like, no, but you've never focused on one thing to help you make money. And so I appreciate you sharing that, because there's like a huge reality behind the benefit of doing that, because then you are known as one of the best people that teaches on that topic, because you've given it the effort that it deserves.
Yeah, I think people are too quick, like swiping left on Tinder. It's like if you introduce a product and it's like, oh, I'm going to date it this one time. I don't know. The guy, they only showed up, or they showed up late, or only one person showed up to dinner or whatever. And then you just delete it and go on to the next thing. It's like you're constantly dating. And you're wondering, like, why is my business not giving me the commitment or the consistency that I want? It's like, you won't ever commit. You're not committed. And there's no consistency. Like,
what's the problem? It's you.
I don't know. And I'm not sure if that's a good way to think about business, but I think about it like dating, because it makes it very practical. And it's like, go steady with it for, 9 months or like a year.
It could be just a phase, Jereshia.
It could.
Everyone needs that phase a little bit.
Exploring courses a little bit.
Which is cool. But when like, okay, this could be the thing.
This could be the thing. Yeah.
Get coaching, go to counseling, figure some things out, and let's double down.
Totally. I love it. What's your favorite part about having a course in your business?
Oh man,
or as your business, we should say.
Yeah. For right now, it is as. I mean, the biggest thing for me is like the lives that we're able to change. It's. I think sometimes, and I know like this, like recently for me, it's been really a difficult time personally in my life and professionally in my career within the business. And I was just speaking at an event this weekend, and like, this is why I do what I do. And I can't forget about the students that we're impacting. I think sometimes running online businesses, even though you get to touch the customer, you don't get to see the customer and like feel the customer like you would if in a retail store. And I think sometimes I forget about like the whole human on the other end of the transformation that's taking place. And when I was at an event this weekend, there was a student there that was one of the very first students that enrolled in Launch Your Hustle. And then there was a student that had just recently enrolled in Services That Sell. And it was just this full circle, like, and they're just telling me about the results they've been able to get and the success they've had, and not just from their business, but like the evolution in their being, like who they've become and how their mindset has evolved. And just, it was just, that is the thing that is the most rewarding is, and that's kind of the bigger mission for why I do what I do. Like, I want to see more women and more people of color making more money, and learning how to articulate their value and learning how to, sell themselves so they can position themselves for elevated rates and elevated price points, change their family dynamic, like all the things there. But like being able to just remind myself and get those reminders when I get to go in person and actually meet our students. I had another student that came to Detroit. She's from Jamaica. And I'm like, you came all the way, she's like, she was really going to Chicago, made a pit stop in Detroit so we could meet.
Oh, nice.
But, I'm saying that casually, but like, like it's, that to me is just a big deal. Like, and it's, I think that is just realizing that when we choose to be obedient to our gifts and choose to show up and actually teach with confidence and sell, so we actually can enroll students and help them. Like, there's just so much, there's just this beautiful ripple effect that happens in the world. And that just gets me giddy. And that's like, that's really what I love most about the businesses. It probably even for you, like being a teacher, like I remember Mr. Wellman, my 9th grade architecture teacher who changed my life. Like that's the thing that I love to be able to think about is I'll be able to kind of make that imprint too on the students that I get to serve.
1,000%. And you're just actually bringing me back to the Scale of Success Summit that we had in March, where I taught a little bit of our process. And I think I opened with your favorite teacher growing up. And was it Mr. Bell that you shared that he wrote you that note?
Yeah, Mr. Wellman. He was like, that was the guy,
Can you share a little bit with that? Because I think it's actually really powerful. And I like actually one of the last questions we asked people are who were your favorite teacher growing up. So maybe you could share a little bit about him, because I think it's really powerful to like connect to the people that we've touched and recognizing that, or that have touched us, and recognizing that we can actually have that same impact on people. It just looks a little different than it would maybe in an institution. Right. But yeah, share a little bit about him. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was in high school, and I don't know if you guys used to play The Sims as kids, but that was like my go-to game. Right? Like that was my thing. And I signed up for architecture class because it was like, okay, this is real life Sims. And Mr. Wellman was the teacher. And it was a joint class of architecture and engineering. And I vividly remember saying, like, you know, there's no way I can be an engineer. Like, I'm not smart enough to be an engineer. So I loved design, loved architecture, but there was also a really big part of me that settled in that classroom because I didn't think I was smart enough to be the engineer. And Mr. Wellman always would introduce me and kind of give me projects that would still involve engineering, just to kind of like, you know, show me that I could and was capable of doing it. And I would skip other classes to go hang out in his classroom. I would skip lunch, you know, or bring my lunch, and I'd go back to his classroom to be able to work. And like, we just had a really good dynamic relationship. But then kind of interesting enough, I started off college in architecture, and my sophomore year kind of life happened, and I made a decision to switch to civil engineering. And it was those little seeds that Mr. Wellman planted in me in high school that even gave me the courage to be able to switch my major to engineering once I was in college. And it's like, me becoming an engineer is so like, was probably one of the smartest things I've ever done in my life, because it has been the foundation of what has made me successful in every other area of my life. Like learning how to think through processes. All engineering is problem solving. And all life is just a bunch of problems. Like, so it's been really, it's helped me navigate. It allowed me to get this amazing career and get exposed to running hundreds of millions of dollars in project budgets, which also is a huge reason why I've been successful in business, is I got to see it. So it's just been this ripple effect again. And I wondered, like, I didn't think about it like this either, but I had really good teachers, and I wonder if that, you know, and they just showed so much compassion and like love and care for their students. Like, Mr. Wellman, especially, he never just treated us like another kid that would come in, and like, he cared about us as individuals outside of just being his students. And I just wonder if, I don't know, I'm thinking about it now, like, has that always been playing a role into how I teach today? So yeah, shout out to Mr. Wellman if you ever listen to this.
Yeah, let's tag him on Instagram.
But so yeah, that was really awesome. And even like kind of a funny story, we were at Home Depot, guys, we just bought a house, and we were laughing about there. But crazy enough, my 6th grade orchestra teacher, we were walking in, me and my fiance, and his name was Mr. Rose, and I didn't remember him until he was like, Jereshia Hawk? I was like, who is this man? He was like, I was your 6th grade orchestra teacher. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, you know, and he said he's been following me on Facebook and like has been watching. But it's just like, it can have this, you never even know as the student how you may be impacting the teacher and vice versa. So I just wanted to share that because that happened like a couple weeks ago.
No, I love it. And I think what I like people connecting with, because I think there's something, would you call yourself a teacher like in your business? Because I think that's a label that at least people who follow me are really comfortable with. Like, does that feel like something you would put on yourself? Like, yeah, I'm teaching these folks. Like, I'm a teacher, I'm an educator, I'm showing up in that way. Or do you like more associate yourself with a coach? Is that a label that you're playing with?
I need to, because when you said it at the beginning of this, I was like, whoa. I am a teacher.
Like, you're a really good teacher. Yeah.
You know?
Totally.
And I wonder too, like, but it's interesting when I go try to explain what I do to people who don't know our world. I always say business, it takes a minute for me to get them. But when my fiance explains it, he's like, oh, she teaches people online. I'm like, just,
and that's interesting.
And it's, so I think part of it might be an ego thing. Like, oh, we need to have these like heavier titles that are like consultant and like all this stuff. It's like, no, I create curriculum. I teach people how to get results within a business with a business focus, but that's really more of what I do. So when you said that at the beginning of this interview, I'm like, I need to adopt that and just own that. So
I love it. Well, that's funny because I think that's like part of my mission with this podcast is like, I want entrepreneurs to see themselves as teachers. You don't have to run around like, because I do think it is hard to explain to someone else, because every time we say we help people create courses online, they're like, oh, like for a college, right? Because there's just that mainstream aspect of teacher means they're in like some sort of institution. I think that's changing and we're the forefront of that. But there is something with the label of teacher that I think having been in a classroom and then coming to this space, like, man, if you own it, like you're recognizing that what you're doing is exactly what you're saying, like bigger than being a consultant. Like there's an emotional relationship, I don't even know, like even spiritual, like thing that you have with students that you've helped move through something you created. There's nothing like that. Like that's teaching, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's beautiful for you to share, you know, and that's what I want people to recognize too, because most people listening have been through a school system, most people. And so they have this connection maybe to an amazing teacher or educator. And I want them to tap into that when they think about creating courses, because it can feel so disconnected and so marketer like oriented, like money focused, when it's like in reality, like you're changing people's lives and you have the ability to do that.
And not only that, it's maybe they have a teacher in mind when they think of their favorite teacher, but they think, oh, I don't want to be a teacher. Like I don't want to go to a school and become a teacher, but you can have that same experience and that like that fullness in your heart when you help a student and see that you've changed their life without even being a part of an institution. That you have your own product that's a course and you're changing people's lives through that product.
Yeah. So anyways, thank you for sharing your struggle with even not connecting to that word. Cause I think that's part of why it's funny, because we decided to interview both, you know, entrepreneurs who are stepping into becoming teachers, or that label, which is you, and then like educators who are becoming entrepreneurs and they doubt themselves in the entrepreneur space. But I'm trying to highlight like how valuable their experience in a classroom has been. So I think it's like serving both.
I think you and I both remember the question of do we leave the teaching positions because we're letting go of our students. And that was like hard to do. Yeah. But you have more students. We have other students that we're helping here.
Yeah. Our impact is bigger. That's like literally why. Anyways, sorry.
You're okay.
We're like processing over here our identity. Don't worry about it.
Well, even hearing you say like why some entrepreneurs don't see themselves as teachers, like the first thing that came to mind as I was like listening to you guys process through that is like most teachers I know don't get paid well.
Yep.
And hence
the name of the podcast.
Hence the name of the podcast. And it's just like, you know, I think many of us I wonder if many of us, or even myself now, like attached, like, oh, if I'm a teacher, that means that if I own that label, that means that people are going to expect me to charge less, or I'm going to be expected to earn less than what I actually get earned. And for sure. Versus like, you know, leading with, I don't know, the
business coach consultant. Yeah, no, totally. Fair enough, right? Or CEO,
I just wonder.
Totally. Yeah. I love it. I mean, I think that's the cool part is it's multifaceted. And I would even say like, even as a teacher in an online course that I have, a lot of what we do is coaching, like mindset stuff. That's coaching. Like, you know, that's not happening as much in an academic facing like kind of classroom. So fair enough. There's therapists, there's therapy that's happening. Like it's all of it. But I think just knowing and honoring those different roles that we play is part of it. And like owning what the teacher thing is. And I think it opens up the space for like deeper relationships, just what you're talking about with your students. And that is a positive. And that's why we do it. So when you own teacher, you get to, I don't know, like experience the expansiveness that comes with that role, I guess.
Yeah, but I think that's also what allows the most successful programs that I've been in. They are teachers and they're coaches. Like it's not like I've been in programs where they just teach and, you know, you may not get the best results, or they just coach, but there's no curriculum to be able to support.
So it's messy. Yeah,
it's messy. And, you know, even going back to your question of what do I think we're doing really well, I think there's a really healthy balance between here's an opportunity for us to teach you knowledge and teach you information, but here's also coaching to help you implement and apply.
Move through it. Yep, exactly. Yeah. It's both. Yeah. Very cool. Well, this has been a fun conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It has.
Well, thanks so much for stopping by. And where are you hanging out? I know I alluded to it a little bit in the middle of our chat there, but where can people find you online?
Yeah. So if anybody wants to learn more about services that sell, you can actually visit servicesthatsell.com, get on the wait list, and we can send you some more info. If you want to see like behind the scenes of what's going on in the business and hang out with me more intimately, you can follow me on Instagram at Jereshia Hawk, or on Facebook. We have a Facebook group, but you can just find me at Jereshia Hawk there as well.
Perfect. Yay. And she's super fun to hang out with.
Thanks,
Highly
Lindsay.
recommend being her friend. Awesome. Well, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.
Later, Gators.